Hello and welcome to the Armenian News Network Groong Week in Review. I'm Asbed Bedrossian, and this week we're going to talk about the following major topics: Road to Syunik blocked and unblocked, 5-year plan approved, and Parliamentary Dynamics. To talk about these issues, I'm joined by Benyamin Poghosyan, who is the chairman of the Yerevan-based think tank Center for Political and Economic Strategic Studies. He was deputy director of the Institute for National Strategic Studies at the Ministry of Defense from 2010 to 2016, and the vice president for research at the National Defense Research University from 2016 to 2019. Hi, Benjamin. How are you?
Hello, thank you, I'm fine.
Great. Thanks for joining us. Much appreciated. Let's dive into our first topic. Late at night on August 25, Azerbaijan blocked the highway that links Goris-Kapan and therefore the southern province of Syunik to the rest of Armenia. A 21-kilometer stretch of this highway passes through the territory of the old Soviet Republic of Azerbaijan and now has gone under Azeri control since the 44-day war. So Azerbaijan's forces blocked the highway along this stretch, essentially stopping traffic and transportation between Iran and Armenia. After 2 days of what our government called negotiations, Azerbaijan unblocked the highway. The pretext for this event was that, allegedly, an Azeri border guard was stabbed by Armenians. Benjamin, what do you make of this event? Why did they block and then unblock? Was this just a show of force, or did they want something in return from us?
I believe Azerbaijan had several goals or intentions by blocking the roads. The first one was to again hear the confirmation from Armenian political leadership that Armenia recognizes this 21 kilometer of Goris-Kapan road as an Azerbaijani territory. And I would like to emphasize that when Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Russia signed on November 10, 2020, this trilateral statement, the first article of statement said that Armenian and Azerbaijani forces should remain where in the positions which they held on the early morning of November 10. And on early morning of November 10, these territories were behind Armenian armed forces. Armenian armed forces were deployed from 5 to 10 kilometers ahead of this road. So the entire road was behind Armenian armed forces. And again, according to November 10 statement, Armenia has no obligation to withdraw its forces from positions and to give back this part of Goris-Kapan road to Azerbaijan. But based on oral agreements in mid-December 2020, Armenian government ordered Armenian troops to withdraw, again from 5 to 10 kilometers from their previous positions. And by doing so, they gave the control of this road, or part of this road, to Azerbaijan. And this was done because our government stated that, okay, these territories were not part of Soviet Armenia, and our armed forces should be deployed only within the territory of former Soviet Armenia. And this is really very dangerous because if we believe that current Armenia is only what is former Soviet Armenia, and if we believe that, okay, Soviet Union administrative borders should be applied when we are speaking about Armenian borders, Azerbaijani borders, then we have to accept that the Artsakh is part of Azerbaijan because the Nagorno-Karabakh Autonomous Oblast was a part of Soviet Azerbaijan. So this is a dangerous road, but in any case, and now we all hear both from our Prime Minister and also from the chairman of the Foreign Relations National Assembly, no Azerbaijani soldier entered Armenian territory, that Azerbaijanis closed the roads within Azerbaijani territory, that of course it was against some agreements, but in any case, what happened in late August 25 happened only in Azerbaijani sovereign territory. Again, Azerbaijan got another confirmation from Armenia that we recognize, or our political leadership recognized this 21-kilometer section of Goris-Kapan road, which in general is approximately 60 kilometers, as a part of Azerbaijan. And this is really very dangerous development, I guess.
So was this all part of unwritten and oral agreements after the November 9 agreement?
The agreements was oral agreements which were reached even not in November but in mid-December 2020. and they were reached between Russia and Azerbaijan. And as our Prime Minister stated days ago, there was also understanding that there should be some new trilateral written statement, but there was no written statement. But in any case, they were oral agreements reached on December 17, according to which our government ordered Armenian armed forces to withdraw from positions which it held on the morning of November 10, and doing this, they gave the control of this 21-kilometer part of this territory to Azerbaijani armed forces.
Well, one thing we noticed was that Iran immediately sounded off to its neighbors to reach a peaceful solution. The deep vulnerability of Syunik, trade with Iran, and Armenia's ongoing state of national insecurity is a clear concern for Iran, almost more than to the Armenian government. How is Iran adjusting to this new insecure normal?
My understanding is that definitely Iran was satisfied by the previous status quo. I mean the status quo which we had before September 27, 2020. But also Iran understood that he was not able to prevent the change of status quo. So when war started, Iran understood that okay, what is going, it's not very good for us, but we are not in a position to prevent this. So the best option is try to accommodate to this new status quo. So they understood that Azerbaijan is going to win the war, that Azerbaijan is going to invade a lot of territories. That is why they started to make statements that Azerbaijan had the right to liberate its territories, and this was stated both by the former foreign minister Javad Zarif, and also on November 3 or on November 4th, just a week before the end of the war, Iran's supreme leader made a statement that okay, Iran welcomes the liberation of Azerbaijani territories and blah blah blah. So from my understanding, this was the case from Iran to adjust to this new situation and try to receive as less damage or harm as possible. But from the point of view, definitely Iran is not interested to see the total influence of Turkey in the South Caucasus. Also we should understand that there is a delicate balance, because Iran is also happy with President Erdogan's efforts to make Turkey an independent player in the region and to end the Turkish role as a junior ally of United States. Because Iran understands very well that its rivalry or conflict with United States will continue for a very long period of time. And in this geostrategic equilibrium, Turkey as a regional player, a relatively independent regional player, is much more favorable for Iran than Turkey, which simply acts as a junior ally of the United States. So it's a really delicate balance. On the strategic level, what is Erdogan doing? If you look into the rivalry between Iran, US and Iran, Israel, it's favorable for Iran. But from another point of view, Iran understands that no one can guarantee that sometimes when Erdogan leaves the power, and we all know that all leaders leave the power in some or other way, there is no guarantee that the new leadership of Turkey will not pursue more pro-US or pro-Western politics. And in this case, if Turkey will strengthen its positions quite enough in the South Caucasus, it means that if there is a new leadership more pro-Western, this may create more complications for Iran. So yes, Iran is happy with President Erdogan foreign policy in general at strategic level, and Iran is happy to see more independent Turkey. Iran is happy to see Turkey with good relations with Russia. Iran is happy to see tensions between Turkey and the United States, between Turkey and NATO. But also Iran is not happy to see very strong Turkey in the South Caucasus. And Iran understands that if the Syunik province will at least de facto be controlled by Azerbaijan, it means Iran will face much stronger Turkey in the region. That is why, after welcoming Azerbaijan's so-called liberation of its territories and sending some congratulatory messages to Azerbaijan, Iran is also made very clear, both to Turkey, to Azerbaijan, and also to Armenia, that the territorial integrity of Armenia, at least within Soviet Armenia border, is somehow a red line for Iran, and Iran definitely will not be happy to see any changes of Armenia's any changes in Armenia's territorial integrity, and definitely Iran would not like to see that its land border with Armenia is cut off. And also, let's not forget that Armenia-Iran border is the only land border between Eurasian Economic Union and Iran, because other Eurasian Economic Union member states like Russia and Kazakhstan, they have sea border with Iran through Caspian Sea. But Armenia has only land border, and given that Iran signed an interim free trade area deal with the Eurasian Economic Union back in May 2018, and now negotiations are going to be finished for a permanent free trade deal between Iran and the Eurasian Economic Union. In the context of this free trade area deal, permanent free trade area deal, the land border between Armenia and Iran is also becoming the land border of two free trade areas of Eurasian Economic Union and Islamic Republic of Iran.
Right. You mentioned the geostrategic balance between the forces in the South Caucasus. Just over the last couple of days, I read some articles that were talking about the readiness by the EU, the European Union, to drop all embargoes against Iran. If that were to become the case, and partially this was, I think, driven by the need for Europe to get new sources of gas because Russia is becoming somewhat of an unstable partner. If this were to happen, how do you see that the strategic balance could turn to the favor of Iran and possibly to Armenia?
First of all, even if United States will rejoin JCPOA, we know that the negotiations will be resumed in September with under the auspices of new president. Even if European Union will decide to lift sanctions even without United States rejoining the JCPOA. Also, I don't think it could happen because we all know this secondary sanctions policy of United States. But in any case, even in the best case scenario, if somehow we will be returned to the situation of January 2016, when international sanctions were lifted from Iran, it will take several years when Iranian gas could reach the European market, because first of all, main Iranian gas fields are in the southern. So to establish or to construct these new pipelines, and here we are speaking about huge, very high-level capacity pipelines for maybe 30 or 40 or even 50 billion cubic meters of gas annually, to create these new pipelines which will bring gas from Iran to Europe, or even to bring this Gulf system in within Iran, it will take years. These sanctions, or at least nuclear policy-related sanctions, will be lifted, because US has also other sanctions on Iran due to Iran's malign behavior in Middle East, support of terrorism, ballistic missile program, and etc., etc. But if nuclear-related sanctions will be lifted from Iran, my understanding is that Iran will prefer to sell not the gas via pipeline, but to sell the LNG, to create or to establish or construct several LNG terminals somewhere in Persian Gulf and sells the LNG, what for example Qatar is doing, because Qatar is one of the biggest exporters in the world of LNG, shipping or exporting LNG to as far as Japan, South Korea, etc. So I'm afraid that even in this case, I don't think that Armenia could become, even theoretically in long-term future, as a transit country for Iranian gas to reach Europe. And let's not forget that if we speak about Europe a wish somehow to reduce its energy from Iran, the energy independence does not only mean the source, but also it means the transit countries. And we all know that Armenia is under Russian control, and Armenia is under even more Russian control, not even, definitely under more Russian control after the 2020 Karabakh war. So even if theoretically decision will be made not to ship this Iranian gas via LNG, via this, but via pipelines, I don't think that Europe will be happy to see that these huge pipelines with 50 billion or 40 billion cubic meters annual capacity of gas will pass through the territory which is controlled by Russia, if Europe really wants to use this Iranian gas or new pipelines to decrease its energy dependence from Russia. So I'm afraid that in this case, it's very unlikely that any significant volumes of Iranian gas will be transited via Armenia, even if US returns to JCPOA, and somehow there will be a possibility to use this Iranian gas to supply them to European market.
Very interesting. Returning to our original topic, the Prime Minister Pashinyan said reopening of the road in the Ayvazli and the Chaizamli sections can be a very good symbol of regional stability. Benyamin, you've already said that this has been a show of this government's acceptance of Azerbaijani sovereignty over the territory and everything. But what really I don't quite understand is how this event that shows how Azerbaijan is able to disrupt Armenia's economy on a whim is any show of regional stability.
My understanding is that the main danger from such statement of Armenian Prime Minister relies in such a scenario. So Armenia officially accepted that this is an Azerbaijani territory. I mean this road, of this 21-kilometer road. And then Armenia asks Azerbaijan to allow Armenian citizens and Armenian cars and Armenian trucks to travel via Azerbaijani territory without any passport and customs control. And de facto, we had this situation starting from mid-December, when, as I mentioned, Armenia gave this 21-kilometer of section of Goris-Kapan road to Azerbaijani control, but then Armenian citizens and Armenian trucks, Armenian cars, they traveled through Azerbaijani territory. I mean, from Armenian government perspective, through Azerbaijani territory without any customs or passport control. And now Prime Minister stated that, okay, if Azerbaijan will resume this type of functioning of the road, it will be a good sign for regional cooperation. But here is a very dangerous situation, because Azerbaijan, in this narrative and in this logic, Azerbaijan has all the rights to demand or ask or require from Armenia to provide such type of corridor to be connected from Azerbaijan to Nakhichevan Autonomous Republic via Syunik. Because Azerbaijan may say, okay, if you want allow you to travel through my territory to reach from point A in Armenia to point B in Armenia without passport and customs control, in that case you should allow Azerbaijani citizens and Azerbaijani cars and trucks to pass via Armenian territory or via the Syunik province to reach from point A in Azerbaijan to point B in Nakhichevan Autonomous Republic, also without any visa and customs control. And frankly speaking, in this logic, I don't see how Armenia can object this. And I'm afraid we may have, if Armenian government will decide to make changes of so-called enclaves and give to Azerbaijan Tigranashen and three villages in Tavush region and bring back Artsavashen. Because we all know that Tigranashen is located also on the same Yerevan-Iran border road in Ararat province. Right. And then again, Armenia may ask Azerbaijan that, okay, the highway passes through Tigranashen, or highway passes from Karki, according to our Armenian Prime Minister logic. Armenia may ask Azerbaijan, please allow Armenian citizens and Armenian cars and trucks to pass through Azerbaijani territory of Karki without any customs and passport control. And again, Azerbaijan may say, okay, your citizens and your transport vehicles can pass Azerbaijani territory of Karki to reach from, for example, Yeras to Yeregnadzor. But in that case, again, please provide the same zero visa and passport control travel opportunity for Azerbaijani citizens and vehicles to reach, for example, from Kubatlu via Goris and Sisyan to Nakhichevan Autonomous Republic.
So this is all falling within the context of enclaves and exclaves and territorial communications, basically. I see.
I believe, yes. My understanding is that all this may create a situation when Azerbaijan will receive customs-free and passport control-free transit rights, which effectively means corridors, a corridor right to be connected with the Nakhichevan Autonomous Republic via Syunik province, which will have in the long-term period, long-term I mean 10-15 years, which will have catastrophic implications and consequences for Armenia, because it will mean first Azerbaijan and Turkey economic penetration into Syunik province, then we will see demographic penetration into Syunik province, and somewhere in 2030 or 2035 we will see that Azerbaijan and Turkey de facto controls Syunik province, and no one in 21st century needs to de jure occupy or organize referendum or annex or join this territory to Azerbaijan. De jure, this territory can continue to be part of Armenia, but de facto it will be under Azerbaijan and Turkey control.
Okay, one thing that I noted here is Armenia's Ombudsman, Tatoyan, received a stream of calls from the area residents who were quite concerned about the events. He continues to be a highly respected and trusted public figure. I personally wanted to note again how highly appreciated he is. My question, Benjamin, is do you think Tatoyan will enter politics at some point?
I'm not in a position to say what Tatoyan thinks, but I believe that Tatoyan objectively, and I'm not absolutely telling that he's making these right things, and even if it's not the right thing, the problem of Armenia is that someone, a state official, is doing what he must do. The people say, oh, this is a very good person because he's doing what he must do. Unfortunately, in the last 30 years, there's a lot of Armenian high-level and mid-level officials, they didn't do what they must do. So unfortunately, when Mr. Tatoyan is doing what he must do, and doing it very well, this is so surprising for Armenian society that people think that, okay, yes, that Tatian is not from Earth. Maybe he came from Mars, because usually Armenian officials, they didn't do what they must do and for what they being paid. But because the situation is this, so Mr. Tatian is doing what he must do, and he's doing it very brilliantly. And definitely we should thank him for this. And objectively, this gives him some credit to have an opportunity to enter the politics. Again, I'm absolutely not claiming that he's doing this to create this baggage to enter the politics, but objectively, he has a quite a good chance to enter the politics, because he is one of the very few, if not the only, Armenian official who does what he must do, and who does it very brilliantly.
Let me just say that I also have no basis for asking that question, just a subjective question, because I'm so pleased that there's Arman Tatoyan. We saw a lot of videos of the region recently, and of course, whatever you see, roads to the villages, they're all unpaved in poor condition everywhere. For places like Shornokh, Vorodan. I mean, it's not new to me. I've seen videos over the years constantly. But why hasn't this critical infrastructure to connect the country materialized, ever been prioritized in over the years?
Unfortunately, this is another evidence of deep degradation of Armenian statehood. Just today, I mean Sunday, August 29, President Aliyev visited airport in recently invaded Fizuli.
Mm-hmm.
And the airport is almost ready. And we are speaking about international airport.
Right.
So within 9 months, if we calculate it starting from December 1st, within 9 months, Azerbaijan was able to construct an international airport in Fizuli, in the area which was mined heavily. There was no highways to reach them, etc., etc. But again, within 9 months, Azerbaijan was able to construct international airport in Fizuli. For example, for last 9 years, when Armenia started this north-south highway projects to connect Bavra in Armenia-Georgia border with Megri, Armenia-Iran border, and construction started in 2012, 9 years ago, we finished only from 15 to 20% of this highway. Okay, it's very interesting. We have 9 years of international north-south highway being constructed in Armenia without war, totally in our territory, and we have only from 15 to 20% finished of the highway, and no one knows when this highway will be finished, but everybody knows that this is not going to happen until 2030. So in the best case scenario, Bavra will be connected with Megri somewhere in 2030, 2032, which means 20 years. 20 years.
Yeah.
By the way, through international funding, because Armenia received funding for this highway from Asian Development Bank, from European Investment Bank, from Eurasian Development Bank, while Azerbaijan, within 9 months, and with its own money, finished the construction of international airport. Yeah. So again, this is another proof, and very sad proof, and very disappointing proof, and very terrible proof of the almost complete degradation of Armenian statehood for last 30 years. Of course, this is a cliche to speak about the last 30 years, but this time this is not a cliche, this is a fact. Or at least for last 26 years or 27. Okay, let's assume that until May 1994, Armenia was in war, there was a terrible energy crisis, economic crisis, so we have 2 hours per electricity, 1 hour of water supply. So let's start calculations from May 1994. Yes, 27 years and almost zero single significant infrastructure project. Zero, simply zero. Yeah. I am speaking about a significant infrastructure project, not like a project like Dilijan Tunnel or some new highways in Yerevan. Okay, they are good, but they don't have strategic importance. Yeah. But for example, the Fizuli International Airport, it has strategic importance for Azerbaijan, because by opening the Fizuli International Airport and almost finishing the new highway connecting Fizuli with Shushi, Azerbaijan creates all possibilities to transform Shishu into something like a mini Dubai of South Caucasus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not even going to ask where all the taxpayer money gets prioritized, because I'd just be venting about this stuff. I'll move on to the next topic, which is the 5-year plan that was approved in the parliament. So after 3 days of so-called debates in the National Assembly, the parliament passed the government's 5-year plan along a deeply partisan line vote, 70-0. Only civil contract MPs voted for this plan. We're going to talk about the events in the parliament in a moment, but for right now, let's just focus on the 5-year plan, which we also covered last week. So for the sake of brevity, I'm not going to read all the points, but I'll duplicate them for our listeners in the show notes, and we'll provide the links on our pages. Let's take a couple of minutes to hear your overall high-level assessment of the plan. then maybe we can talk about a few of the top items that you consider crucial to Armenia's success in the coming months and years. What did you think about the plan? How did it look to you?
For me, the key in the plan was absolute inadequate and very foggy wording about Artsakh, because there was no Republic of Artsakh in entire plan, no word or no mention of Republic of Artsakh.
Right.
There was only one sentence that Artsakh conflict should have the just solution.
In fact, it surprised me that they had anything about Artsakh in the plan, but...
And it's a very foggy and unclear statement, because what does it mean just? For example, for some people, just could be the cultural autonomy of Artsakh within Azerbaijan. For other people, just solution is for all Armenians to leave Artsakh and come to, I don't know, either to Yerevan or to Moscow or to United States. Again, very foggy and very unclear elaborations about Artsakh, and there was no mention about how Armenia occupies the territories which Azerbaijan invaded during the 44 days war. Even there was no mentioning of these territories.
Right.
So from this program, you even don't understand what government mean when he speaks about Artsakh. Even this is not clear. A government means Artsakh with its current border, with the borders of November 10, 2020. Armenian government means Artsakh with its 1988 border of Nagorno-Karabakh Autonomous Oblast, or its 1991 September 2nd border when Nagorno-Karabakh Republic was declared, and it was Nagorno-Karabakh Autonomous Oblast plus the Shahomian region. So, frankly speaking, by reading this program of government, my understanding is that our government is in full agreement with President Aliyev when President Aliyev states that there is a no Artsakh conflict and there is a no Artsakh issue. When I read the Armenian government, my understanding is that de facto there is a no Artsakh problem and no Artsakh issue for Armenian government too, and definitely this is said.
So what do they want to discuss in the context of the OSCE?
I don't know. I believe they simply put this OSCE to have the mention of OSCE and not to be under the blame. Because look, everyone understands that as far as Russia and the United States, and they are the only two countries who can force President Aliyev to restart negotiations on Artsakh status. As far as neither Russia nor United States are not going to force President Aliyev, OSCE Minsk group co-chairs, they may make statements on a monthly basis. For example, 12 statements within 1 year. And the Armenian government will make another 12 statements expressing their fully gratitude or fully consent with statements of OSCE Minsk group co-chairs. And we will have 24 statements per year, 12 statements by OSCE co-chairs, and another 12 statements government regarding the possible restart of negotiations under the auspices of co-chairs with negotiations focused on Artsakh status, and we will have zero negotiations. And everybody understands this, and the Armenian government also understands this. That is why I believe they simply put it. So if somewhere in December 2022, when anybody will ask them, look, but almost 1.5 year or 2 years passed from the end of the war, why we have zero negotiations? They may say, okay, we put this program, this article or this point in our program, but what we can do, we are not in a position to force Azerbaijan, and we even don't want to force Azerbaijan because we want to have normal relations with Azerbaijan and Turkey. We want Azerbaijan and Turkey investments and money coming to Armenia to raise living standards of our populations. So Artsakh is only the Russian problem. So if there is a problem in Artsakh, blame Russia and criticize Russia. It's totally within the Russia-Azerbaijan realm, or at least in a triangle of Russia, Azerbaijan, Turkey. So if after several years no Armenian will stay in Artsakh, the only thing which government will do, he will say again, he will criticize Russia, telling that okay, you again see that Russia is a traitor, and again they sold us to Azerbaijan and Turkey for their national interests.
What do you think they mean when they say Armenia must have an active and proactive foreign policy?
Good question. In general, all understand that no one will write in any program that I am going to be passive and reactive. It will definitely sound very strange if any government or even any organization will write in any strategies that, okay, we are going to be very passive and we are going to be very reactive. But from my point of view, if Armenia really government wants to be proactive and not reactive or passive, he has a very good opportunity to show this because in 3 days we will have the 30th anniversary of declaration of Nagorno-Karabakh Republic. Again, let me remind that Nagorno-Karabakh Republic was established on September 2nd, 1991. So within 3 days we have the 30th anniversary of Nagorno-Karabakh Republic. So if Armenian government want to be proactive and not reactive and passive, I believe they should, in the highest level, visit the Stepanakert and they clearly articulate their positions, what they see the future of Artsakh. Okay, if they see the future of Artsakh as a part of Azerbaijan, it's okay. If they see the future of Artsakh with zero Armenians, it's also okay. But at least you should be proactive and you should articulate your vision. So the September 2nd will provide a good opportunity for Armenian government to prove that he's going to be proactive and not reactive and passive.
There was an item reforming the armed forces to secure the nation. Were you impressed by their statements?
I only know, we all heard only one thing, that the mandatory conscription, duration of mandatory conscription is going to be reduced. There are no clear statement how much, but obviously it will become at least 18 months from current 24. Also, there is a statement that the border troops should be deployed along Armenia-Azerbaijan border and not army, because Armenian government believes that Armenia-Azerbaijan border should become a border of peace, and that is why if there is a peace, you don't need armed forces, you need only border troops. And also very vague statements that we are going to buy only modern weaponry, but what kind of weaponry? And the most interesting thing, there is no understanding why Armenia is going to buy any weaponry. So what are the tasks of armed forces? There is zero clarity on this. Is the task of armed forces to prepare to defend the current borders of Artsakh if Russian peacekeepers leave? This is one question, no answer. Or is armed forces is going to defend at least the Republic of Armenian territory when Azerbaijan will attack and will possibly destroy this unit of border troops? And also there are some vague statements that we are going to have a professional army. I believe this is somehow a manipulation for those parts of society who think that, okay, after within 5 years we will have a full professional army and no one will go to serve, only those who will go to serve who want to serve, something like in United States. Right. Or at least to tell them, okay, your sons or your children will serve not 24 months, but maybe 18 months or even 12 months. They will not go to serve on the borders. So even if Azerbaijan will start to shoot and kill, your children will not be killed, but the members of border troops will be killed. So it's interesting what is the difference if soldiers of border troops are being killed or armed forces troops are being killed.
Right. I do not understand under the current situation how they can separate the army from the border guards. This is not a moment of peace. But when you mentioned the buy modern weaponry, I remember that the defense minister in Moscow said there were 3 major tenets for his concept of modernization. It was buying only modern weaponry, like you said, growing a domestic production of modern weaponry. But a third one was the elimination of middlemen in the defense procurement process between the ministry and its vendors. What do you make of that statement? What are these middlemen who are there?
We all know that there was an organization who was acting the middleman, but at least it was signing contracts on behalf of Armenian Ministry of Defense. And the director was named David Galesyan, if I'm not mistaken.
No, that's him, yeah.
With a strange nickname of Patron David, or in Armenian Pampush David, or in English Bullet David. And now I believe he was arrested after the war, and still is under arrest as far as I know, because I didn't hear that he was freed. And many argue there are some gossips that he was, because this guy, he was acting also before the revolution, when Ser Sargsyan was president, and he continued to act also after the revolution. So there are gossips that he was a friend of Ser Sargsyan and he was a friend of the David Tonoyan, the Minister of Defense, from May 2018 until November 2020. Okay, these are gossips, but let's hope that this criminal investigation will lead to somewhere.
Yeah.
But the fact is that this person was also active in military procurement before the revolution.
Are there many of his type in the procurement process, or is it just 1 or 2 significant individuals?
I believe 1 or 2 significant individuals, at least I'm aware of only him, frankly speaking.
Okay, I'm going to go back to the so-called debate in the parliament earlier this past week. Benyamin, we've all seen the videos and the news coverage of the scuffles breaking out over the course of a couple of days. MPs hitting each other, throwing bottles of water at each other, security forces dragging out MP Ana Magirchian, etc. Kind of sad. What were your impressions as you watched this coverage?
Of course, I believe no one could have a good impression. So there are some people who are arguing that okay, at least this means that Armenian democracy starts to work. Comparing this with Taiwan, for example, or with South Asian countries, telling that okay, at least we have a democracy, which means we have an opposition. This is a sign of democracy, but not institutionalized. So hopefully, after several years, we will have an institutional democracy. Of course, this is also an opinion or also an option. But one thing which concerns me is that the fact that, for example, the Speaker of the National Assembly may simply order some security guys to come and forcefully take out the member of parliaments from the session hall because of their statements. Because the member of parliaments, they are directly elected representatives of people. By the way, only directly elected, because the prime minister is not directly elected. They are only directly elected representatives of authorities. And I'm not an expert in parliamentary democracy or in general in parliaments, but frankly speaking, I don't remember any case when any speaker of parliament has an authority to invite security service guys and to order them to forcefully kick out any member of parliament from hall because of the statements of this member of parliament. Again, because of statement. Of course, if any member of parliament will took the gun and start to shoot, definitely he should be arrested and kicked out. But simply to kick out member of parliaments because they political statements or their vocabulary, this is very strange for me. Again, I'm not an expert in parliamentary democracy, but it sounds strange.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you, how come it's not the case where these MPs are given 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever minutes, so that they can speak whatever they deem to be in the benefit of the community they represent? And why does the speaker not allow them that time, whatever they want to say, but not based on their views? Because right now it almost feels like a censorship of the MPs.
Yes, frankly speaking, it means that there is some factors or there is some topics which MPs are not allowed to discuss. Otherwise, they will be forcefully shut down and forcefully be kicked out from the hall, which is really strange. Especially taking into account that the members of current leadership back in July 2018, just immediately after the revolution. We remember the statements that Armenian Velvet Revolution was even the bigger event for world democracies than even the French Revolution of 1789, that the Armenian Revolution will enter into the
annals of world history
of democracy, and etc., etc., that Armenia now is a beacon of democracy, not in the South Caucasus, but in the world. These were statements made by very close associates of Mr. Pashinyan, who still they occupying the very high level positions in the Republic of Armenia today, 3 years after the revolution.
I was watching the interpersonal dimension of the relationships between these MPs. It really looks to me like they despise each other on a personal level, and that doesn't fill me with a lot of optimism that the parliament can come to compromise solutions to make for the sake of the Armenian people.
Frankly speaking, I believe that the parliament or the civic contract does not need a compromise, because they have 71 MPs from 107, which means that, okay, opposition MPs may shout, they may throw bottles, they may be kicked out by force, they may not be kicked out, but at the end of the day, the parliament works through voting. So if you have 71 MPs from 107, whatever opposition say, does not say, or makes
regardless
or not
of what
makes,
they say, it doesn't matter.
Yes. So I don't think that civil contract need compromise. In this context, they are acting more like a rub parliament for government, which is another problem, because in a parliamentary republic, usually parliament should supervise the government. But obviously, the current civic contract is absolutely not in a position to supervise.
Benyamin, you've noticed that Speaker Simonian blocked the coverage of Parliament when these events were happening. And we discussed this on the podcast last week. Everybody on our podcast last week had deep concerns about stunting the Armenian press from covering the parliamentary events, regardless of what's going on in there. The arbitrary rules are there for the pretext of security, but in reality, they're just protecting the ruling party from inquisitive press. And we felt this erodes democracy. Can you share your thoughts about these press rules?
I agree with assessments. This definitely has nothing to do with democracy. And it's strange that even in current faction of civic contracts, there are former journalists, former opposition journalists, who before 2018 were complaining against the restriction of freedom of journalists. Also, before 2018, there was no such restriction, at least in the building of parliament. I'm not speaking in general, but I am speaking inside the building of parliament. And it's very strange to see that the journalists which were complaining against restriction of freedoms of journalists before revolution, now when they are part of the ruling elite or they are MPs, they are very vigorously restricting the freedoms of journalists. It's an interesting metamorphosis, but we have what we have.
Yeah. Okay, let's leave it there today. Thank you, Benyamin. I appreciate your time and your thoughts and joining us on short notice. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Well, that was our Week in Review show, and we hope it helped you catch up with some of the issues in and around Armenia from this past week. As always, we invite your feedback and your suggestions. You can find us on most social media and podcast platforms, or our website, groong.org. On behalf of everyone in this episode, we wish you a great week. Don't forget to subscribe to our channels, like our pages, and follow us on social media. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.